Hey, I'm Dan, and this week we're wrapping up our series on wisdom. Today's big idea is that we need one another. Let me tell you a story about a time where I really needed someone. I had to get to work one day and my car broke down. I had a flat tire. So I had to take my car to the mechanic, and I didn't know how I was gonna get to work without a vehicle. Thankfully, my friend Christian came by and picked me up and drove me to work. And I was super thankful for that because it was a really busy day at work and I had no other way of getting there. I'm the kind of person that has trouble asking for help when I need it, but it takes a lot of wisdom to recognize when we're in a spot where we need someone else's help. Let's watch today's God story and see what we can learn from that.
What did one eye say to the other? Just between us, something smells. Hi everyone, it's Jen. I'm so excited to be back with you today. I want to share a story with you about a time that I really needed my mom. See, a few years ago, I had to get surgery on my jaw, and it was a pretty big surgery, and afterwards I had a lot of trouble eating because this part of my mouth was a little bit numb. And so we went to the mall together and I really wanted some ice cream, but almost impossible to eat because it was just really messy when I tried all by myself. So my mom had to help me. She got a napkin and a spoon and she was able to help me enjoy that ice cream in the mall, and I was so thankful she was there to help me. And that reminds me of today's big idea. We need one another. Oh, that's a nice big idea, isn't it? Why don't we turn to the person next to us and say, we need one another? In today's God story, we're going to continue to gain wisdom. In this series, we've been learning how to live wisely God's way. Remember, we are in the book of Proverbs, which is in the Old Testament. Proverbs were written by a man named Solomon. He was actually the son of King David. And Solomon was pretty amazing because God once asked Solomon what he wanted. And do you know what Solomon asked God for? He asked him for wisdom. And so King Solomon became the wisest man to ever live. And so he had a lot of smart things to say. In this chapter, Proverbs 27, he gives us a ton of advice. Let's see what he wants to teach us. He starts this chapter by telling us not to brag about tomorrow because we never know what tomorrow could bring, but also that we shouldn't brag or boast about ourselves. Do you know what boasting about yourself means? It basically means to brag about yourself and talk about how good you are. Then he warns us about anger and jealousy. He says, anger is mean and great anger overpowers you. But who can face jealousy? Being warned openly is better than being loved in secret. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy kisses you many times. This part of scripture says that it's better to be warned openly than to be loved in secret. What does that mean? That means it's good for your friend to correct you out of love. Like, have you ever had a friend go, hey, there's some spinach in your teeth? They do that because they care about you. The text goes on to say that the sweetness of your friend will come out in all of their honest advice. And that whole thing about enemies means that somebody who is against you might try to look like they're with you when they're in front of other people. Let's read together what verse 17 says. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. This verse is like saying, just as the pencil sharpener sharpens the pencil, we can sharpen one another. And when I say that friends sharpen one another, I don't mean that you become a sword. I mean you get wiser, smarter, and stronger in your faith. God wants to use us in all sorts of wonderful ways to serve Him and His people. King Solomon is saying that when your friends look out for you and correct you in love, they are sharpening you for His purposes. Isn't that awesome? And this sharpening is talking especially about your heart. Let's read verse 19 together. When you look into water, you see a likeness of your face. When you look into your heart, you see what you are really like. God can see what our hearts really look like. And of course, that's why we want to become wise and more like Jesus. That's the reason for our big idea this week. We need one another. Just as we need our friends to look out for us, we need to look out for our friends too. And that just doesn't mean our friends at school, that can also mean our family or even our neighbors. How can we be looking out for them? Let's read one last verse together. Be sure you know how your flocks are doing. Pay careful attention to your herds. Now, I know we don't actually have a flock of sheep, but we have each other. Since we need one another, we need to be sure we know how our friends are doing. Make sure you ask them regularly how they are, and be willing to correct them lovingly if you see that they are falling off the right path. For example, if you see your friend picking on another kid, be sure to step in and let them know that that's not okay and remind them of who they are. Sometimes it's easier to sit back and not do or say anything, but we need each other to sharpen our hearts and to gain wisdom. Is your heart sharp? Let's help sharpen one another's. Well, friends, it's been so good to be with you. I will see you again next time.
Turn to the person next to you and answer the following questions before the time runs out.
Question time! This part of the verse means that we can help make each other better. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy kisses you many times. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. When you look into your heart, you see what you are really like. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. There is so much that we need each other for. What is one thing you need someone for?
Game time! Bike bark! How many times can you say the key verse before the time is up? Say it with me. If any of you needs wisdom, you should ask God for it. He will give it to you. God gives freely to everyone and doesn't find fault. James 1, verse 5. Get ready! 3, 2, 1, go!
Ah!
This was a really important message. When we care for someone, we correct them in a loving way because we don't want to see them make mistakes that hurt them. The flip side of that is that we need to be able to take advice from people that are close to us, knowing they have their best intentions for us when they say those things. There are so many times in our lives where we need other people's help, and sometimes they can be pretty unexpected. Let's watch Mackenzie's story.
I'm 19 years old. I just graduated high school last year, and I love to travel. I love seeing the world and seeing what God created and meeting new people and seeing all the different cultures. My favorite would be Ireland. We just got back from there. The best parts were probably the cliffs and the castles. When I was 15 years old, I was diagnosed with kidney stones, and they were really concerned why that was because I was a 15-year-old girl. They found out that I had this disease called multiple endocrine neoplasia type 1. The short form for it is MEN1, and that means that one of my chromosomes is cut in half, and it allows me to grow tumors on 3 parts of my body. So my pancreas, my pituitary gland, and my parathyroids. One of my parathyroids was taken out. That's why I have the scar on my neck, because there was a tumor on it. And I also have a tumor on my pituitary gland, but it's very tiny. So the fear is that I would get a tumor on my pancreas. I've read stories and I've seen videos of people who have had the tumor on their pancreas and it's become cancerous, and it's very dangerous, yeah. I was really nervous. I remember just blocking a lot of it out because I didn't want to be that girl who had something wrong with her, and I was just nervous to tell people, so I didn't talk about it at all, really. I wasn't sure what was gonna happen. I wasn't sure if I was gonna be in hospitals for the rest of my life. My mom was a big part because she would try and push at me and try and get it out of me and to talk about it more every day, and then my stepdad as well. And my brother and sister were always there, even though they weren't sure what was going on. I knew that they were there, and they always made me happy. And then my boyfriend, Chris, also, he's always been there. So when I just got out of my surgery, I remember opening my phone, and there was a text message from him, and there was a Bible verse. And then there was just him saying that you can do this, you're strong, and I think because of the people there, just being around me, showing God's love, and also knowing that I am able to pray and talk to God. If I'm afraid, if I get this sudden urge, I'm just afraid and I just don't know what to do with it, I can pray and I know that He'll always be there. It really takes the fear away. I get excited to tell people about my story and what I have, especially when people ask me what the scar on my neck is. And I get excited to tell them that God's by my side and that I don't have to be afraid.
Question time! Several people supported Mackenzie when she received bad news about her health. Who supported her, and how did it make her feel? How can you be there for your friends when they need love and support?
Mackenzie was comforted because she knew God was there for her. But the fact that her parents and her siblings and her boyfriend were there for her as well meant the world to her. Let's take this as a practical example to check in with our friends, to reach out to them and support them in practical ways, to show them that we really care. Let's break into our small groups now and see what this looks like in our own lives.